Coming up on Arirang News. Japan starts releasing some of the wastewater that's stored at the crippled Fukushima nuclear plant into the Pacific Ocean. It comes 12 years after the earthquake and the tsunami caused a meltdown of the plant's reactors. North Korea confirms its second attempt to put a spy satellite into orbit failed less than 3 months after its first attempt crashed into the sea. But it says it'll try again in October. With just 30 days to go until the Hangzhou Asian Games takes place next month, Team Korea gets ready to win medals in many areas, from swimming, archery, and fencing to esports. Good evening. It's 9 p.m. here in Seoul. Thank you for joining us on Arirang News. This afternoon at around 1 p.m., Japan started to release some of the wastewater from the stricken Fukushima nuclear power plant into the Pacific Ocean. The devastating earthquake and tsunami in 2011 caused water within the plant to be contaminated, and the discharge of more than 1 million metric tons of wastewater is expected to take decades. Our Kim Jong-sil starts us off.
12 years. That's how long it took for Japan to be able to start getting rid of the wastewater that haunted the government since the 2011 Tohoku tsunami and earthquake disaster. The first batch of around 1.3 million tons of stored wastewater was discharged into the Pacific Ocean on Thursday. A first step toward decommissioning the crippled Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant. The plant's operator, Tokyo Electric Power Company, held a press conference on Thursday and said 200 to 210 tons of wastewater will be released by Thursday midnight. From Friday, the company plans to release around 460 tons in a 24-hour window. Ahead of the release, Japan uses a filtering system called multi-nuclide removal facility, also known as ALPS. The Japanese government says ALPS can bring down all radioactive substances to below government standards except tritium. This is why Japan keeps bringing it up. Ahead of the release, TEPCO officials also announced the tritium concentration levels to the public. They conducted a check on Tuesday by mixing a liter of contaminated water with 1,200 tons of seawater. Japanese officials said the tritium concentration level was 43 to 63 becquerels per liter, far below a self-designated standard of 1,500 becquerels per liter. With the help of ALPS, Japanese officials hope to complete the discharge over the next 30 years. 3 decades is still a long time, so securing safety will be a challenge. Another big hurdle is getting rid of the fuel debris inside some of the reactors. The highly radioactive debris is a mixture of melted nuclear fuel and structures surrounding it. They were found on the floors of reactors number 1 to 3 after the 2011 disaster. Even experts in Japan are saying that getting rid of those will be a challenge. There are around 880 known tons of radioactive debris. Japan's Asahi Shimbun said not a gram of it has been taken out as of this March. Japan is working on developing robots that can do the job, but it hasn't been easy. Even with the release of the first batch of wastewater, Japan still has many tough challenges to overcome. Kim Jong-sil, Arirang News.
In response to Tokyo's move, the South Korean government has called on Japan to transparently disclose related information. And to address public concern about safety, Seoul plans to send experts to Fukushima every 2 weeks and will also receive the latest data from the International Atomic Energy Agency. Peunji has more.
Soon after Japan started releasing the wastewater on Thursday, Prime Minister Han Duck-soo said in a briefing that what's important now is for Japan to keep its promise to the international community, to strictly follow the scientific guidelines and transparently disclose information.
Our government hopes and urges the Japanese government to disclose information about the water discharge process that will continue over the next 30 years in a transparent and responsible manner.
Noting that the South Korean government has been putting the health and safety of people in Korea first and foremost, he said excessive concern is unnecessary, and said import bans on fisheries and food products from Fukushima will be in place until public concerns are eased. This comes amid public fear and frustration in South Korea, with civic groups launching protests despite the government's reassurances. The Prime Minister also gave details on what the country has agreed upon with Japan through negotiations. First, South Korean experts will be sent to the IAEA office in Fukushima every 2 weeks to check if Japan is following IAEA safety standards and to make sure it doesn't go wrong. And second, even when the experts are not there, Japan will provide data on the wastewater released to the South Korean government every hour. Also, South Korea will be closely communicating with the International Atomic Energy Agency. Officials from the two sides that are in charge of the role will receive the latest information every single day through regular meetings that will be held virtually. Separately, the IAEA, which opened an office at the Fukushima nuclear power plant last month, launched an on-site inspection. It released new information on its website on Thursday that provides real-time data on the safety of each of the 6 steps included in the discharge process. As of 8 p.m., all 6 stages were given the green light, indicating that there were no unexpected levels of radiation, and the amount of tritium in the water was 207 becquerel per liter. Tritium is a material that will remain even after it goes through the purification system, as it's hard to separate from water. Despite concerns from Japan's local fishing groups and nearby countries, the UN nuclear watchdog had earlier approved the discharge, saying it finds the plans to be consistent with international safety standards. Hangzhou, Arirang News.
Tokyo's decision to start releasing Fukushima wastewater faces continued objections from local fishermen as well as neighboring countries. China says it has banned all seafood imports from Japan. Our Choi Soo-hyung with more.
Strong protests from Japanese fishermen continue following the release of contaminated water from the Fukushima nuclear power plant. The fishermen expressed their clear opposition to the release, stating that the Japanese government did not gain the fishing industry's understanding.
The Prime Minister had promised to carry out the water release after gaining people's understanding of the issue, but he decided to release it without gaining their understanding, so it's rather difficult to understand.
The backlash from neighboring countries is also ongoing. On the 24th, China completely stopped importing Japanese seafood, maintaining a firm stance against the IAEA safety report and Japan's claims. On the same day, Hong Kong, which relies on Japan for 90% of its seafood, also prohibited seafood imports from 10 prefectures, including Tokyo and Fukushima.
I would buy and eat fewer Japanese products. I would also pay attention to which prefecture they're from.
I trust the Japanese government to have done their due diligence. It was a very big deal when this happened originally, so I think that they would not want to skip any steps.
But the U.S. is backing Japan's discharge plan. Korea News reports that the U.S. ambassador to Japan, Rahm Emanuel, will visit Fukushima Prefecture on August 31st to eat fish from the market to show trust in Japan's procedures and offer support. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken expressed satisfaction with Japan's release plan on the 15th, stating that it meets international standards following the IAEA's reports. Choi Soo-hyung, Arirang News.
North Korea confirms its second attempt to put a spy satellite into orbit failed this morning, less than 3 months after its first attempt crashed into the sea. But the regime says it'll give it another try in October. For more details and how the international community has responded, here's our North Korean affairs correspondent, Lee Dae-hyun.
Pyongyang's second attempt to put a satellite in orbit took place at around 3:50 a.m. on Thursday. The North Korea Central News Agency said that the flight's first and second stages of the rocket were normal, but during the third stage, it failed due to an error in the emergency blasting system. The North Korean National Aerospace Development Administration said it will explain the reason for the error soon, adding that a third attempt will likely come in October. Multiple Japanese news outlets said that Japan's Coast Guard had earlier presumed that the launch could have been a ballistic missile, adding that it separated into pieces which landed in the West Sea, East China Sea, and the Pacific Ocean near the Philippines. South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff said that it detected the rocket flying above international waters off the Korean peninsula's west coast after its launch from the northwestern Dongchangni area where the main space launch center is located.
South Korea will continue high-intensity Seoul-Washington joint military drills while closely monitoring Pyongyang's further actions.
Seoul's military officials also said that they are currently in the process of retrieving the satellite body and the wreckage that has fallen in the West Sea. According to one expert, Pyongyang's rush to put the satellite into orbit before the regime's National Foundation Day next month could have been a reason for the failure.
May's attempt revealed problems with both the engine and fuel, which means reconstruction was needed. But launching just 3 months after that shows that there wasn't a high possibility of the plan succeeding.
Meanwhile, officials from the South's Defense Ministry and other related officials attended the National Security Council meeting at around 6 a.m. Members of the council strongly condemned the launch and said that it clearly violates the UN Security Council resolutions. President Yoon also ordered officials to brace for any additional provocations by North Korea and share the analysis result with Washington and Tokyo. He also asked to promptly carry out what had been pledged in the Camp David Trilateral Summit earlier, such as sharing missile alert information in real time and strengthening defense ties for missile provocations. U.S. State Department also agreed that the failed launch was a violation of the UN Security Council resolutions and urged Pyongyang to stop illicit and threatening activities. Washington added that it still pursues dialogue without preconditions with North Korea. Lee Dae-hyun, Arirang News.
Since Monday, South Korea and the U.S. have been conducting joint urban warfare drills as part of the Ulji Freedom Shield exercise. The training is focused on engaging and responding tactically in real-life war scenarios in urban settings. Our defense correspondent Choi Min-jung was at the site.
Let's go, go, go! Go, 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 go! Come on, Lee!
A fierce battle unfolds in a small mucked-up town in Paju, Gyeonggi-do Province. Soldiers of the South Korean and U.S. armies infiltrate a building and take positions to target the enemy. This is a joint urban warfare drill taking place at a training center that looks very much like the cities people live in here in South Korea. It's part of Seoul and Washington's Freedom Shield exercise, which kicked off on Monday. Soldiers are taking part in offensive and defensive operations despite the heavy rain for over 5 days.
This joint urban operation training was a valuable opportunity to verify Seoul and Washington's interoperability as one unit.
A total of 500 South Korean and U.S. soldiers are participating in the exercise day and night, using lasers and blank cartridges to stimulate actual battles. Various military assets were also deployed, including the U.S. Stryker armored vehicle. Despite the language barrier and bad weather, soldiers from both countries were able to cooperate and complete the mission together.
I can tell you everyone in my platoon had a great time working with the ROK Army. They've been incredibly professional. They really understand how we work together, and we had a great week out here this week.
South Korea's army has vowed to develop urban exercises suitable for future use in real-world scenarios by further improving combined arms training. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
Shifting gears, South Korea's central bank has kept its key interest rate unchanged at 3.5% for a fifth straight meeting amid concerns over an economic slowdown. But the government left the door open for a rate hike. Our Shin Ha-young reports.
As widely expected, the Bank of Korea has announced another freeze, keeping its key interest rate at 3.5%. The decision was announced on Thursday following a Monetary Policy Committee meeting.
Inflation is slowing down, but considerable amount of time will be required for it to stabilize at the target level. Considering rising economic uncertainties and the need to closely monitor household debt, we have decided to keep our tightened monetary policy. The Board of Governors voted unanimously to maintain the current tightening stance.
This is the fifth consecutive time that the BOK has decided to keep the rate unchanged. The base rate has been held at 3.5% since February, following 10 consecutive rate hikes to tame inflation beginning in August 2021. The BOK's latest decision came amid concerns over rising economic woes in China with a deepening real estate crisis in the country. Due to these factors, an economic recovery for South Korea in the latter half of 2023, as initially anticipated by the government, has become more uncertain. The latest decision reflects the central bank's intention to monitor the situation rather than imposing a hike, which could further weaken people's spending and investment. In fact, while the growth rate for the second quarter is higher than that of the first quarter, by sector, private consumption, exports, imports, investments, and even government spending have slowed down. Meanwhile, despite the economic slowdown in China as well as a decline in South Korea's exports, the BOK on Thursday maintained its economic growth outlook for this year at 1.4%, slightly below the forecasts from the Korea Development Institute and the OECD. Consumer price growth is expected to be at 3.5%. South Korea's consumer price index has been cooling down, recording the smallest increase in over 2 years in July.
Inflation rates could go up due to the rising crude oil prices during winter, and the rising exchange rate could lead to a jump in import prices.
Due to the BOK's latest decision, the rate gap between South Korea and the U.S. now stands at 2 percentage points. Despite the successive rate freezes, the Bank of Korea says it is focusing on the possibility of rate hikes instead of rate cuts due to the uncertainty over Fed monetary policy and rising household debt in South Korea. 신하영, Arirang News.
Presiding over a meeting to create a more business-friendly atmosphere, President Yoon today focused on getting rid of regulations that hamper industrial complexes, the environmental sector, and the labor market. Our Kim Do-yeon has more.
To foster innovation and economic growth, South Korea will keep looking to scrap so-called killer regulations. That's according to President Yoon Suk-yeol on Thursday, chairing a regulatory innovation strategy meeting at G-Valley Industrial Museum in Seoul, attended by various economy-related ministers and private sector representatives.
지금까지 정부는 1,400여 건의 규제 개선을 완료하는 등 규제 혁신을 위해서 많은 노력을 기울여 왔습니다. 그렇지만 현장에서는 더 과감하고 더 빠른 속도로 진행하기를 요구하고 있습니다.
One main discussion was on loosening occupancy standards on industrial complexes. Rules on who can operate at them have hindered high-tech and emerging sector firms from moving in. This is the first time in 30 years that the government has changed the rules. In addition, the complexes will have gyms, cafes, and places to socialize on site to attract more people from the younger generations. More than $18 billion will be injected for this in the next 10 years, with the expectation of there being more than 12,000 new jobs. In addition, the government is looking to update environmental standards on the production and importing of chemicals, with companies complaining regulations and restrictions are too strict. The government also reiterated its plan to expand the reception of foreign workers, with the E-74 visa quota now being capped at around 35,000 this year from the previous 2,000. To add, the government will double the allowed number of foreign employees. For example, in the manufacturing sector, companies will now be able to hire 18 to 80 foreign workers depending on their size.
총성 없는 경제 전쟁에서 한시가 급한 우리 기업들이 뛸 수 있도록 속도를 내야 합니다. 공직자들의 마인드 역시 확 바꿔 나가야 합니다. 쉽게 풀 수 있는 규제를 넘어서서 우리가 먹고 사는 문제와 직결된 꼭 풀어야 하는 킬러 규제 혁파에 우리 모두 집중해야 합니다.
The meeting comes as President Yoon, during last month's economic policy meeting, ordered for specific regulations to be repealed. According to the top office, a task force for this came up with 15 top regulations to be scrapped, and 6 of them were addressed during Thursday's meeting, with the rest to come in the next meeting. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
The National Assembly unanimously passed a bill at a plenary session held Thursday aimed at preventing flooding, specifically in cities. The opposition proposed bill, dubbed the Urban Streams Flood Prevention Measures Act, passed with 259 votes in favor. The act calls for the government to set up a 10-year plan for flood prevention measures in urban areas. It also establishes the legal grounds for the launch of a comprehensive response center and a flood forecast center. These are to complement existing safety measures that are insufficient in preventing urban flooding. Earlier, the bill had been agreed upon by the Assembly's bipartisan task force for flood recovery, launched in July, after the nationwide death toll due to the torrential rain hit 40. Now, in the world of sports, we're just 30 days away from the highly anticipated Hangzhou Asian Games that'll take place in China after a one-year delay. Today, the Korean national team showcased their commitment and preparation process to the press. Our Song Yu-jin reports.
The clock is ticking down to the Hangzhou Asian Games. After a one-year delay due to COVID-19, the 16-day event will kick off on September 23rd. A record number of 12,500 athletes from 45 countries will compete in 40 sports. South Korea is sending over 860 athletes.
So with the Hangzhou Asian Games less than a month away, Team Korea's athletes are giving their all here at the Jincheon National Training Center in Chungcheongbuk-do Province.
Korea's goal? Placing third in the overall medal ranking, winning 45 to 50 gold medals. 5 years ago in Jakarta, Korea stood third after China and Japan with 49 gold, 58 silver, and 70 bronze. Hopes are high for the nation's swimmers. The Korean Olympic Committee predicts 6 gold, the most for any sport, led by two-time world championship medalist Hwang Sun-woo. Also in the spotlight is Kim Woo-min, who ranked 5th in the men's 400-meter freestyle and was the fastest Asian in the 800 meters at last month's World Championships in Fukuoka.
I believe that hard work pays off. So if I give it my all in training, I think I'll be able to race with confidence.
Korea is also known for its archery and fencing. Kim Woo-jin is the reigning men's individual archery champion. Fencer Koo Bon-gil is aiming to secure a 4th consecutive individual champion title, which would make him the most decorated Asian Games medalist from Korea.
Because our team has been doing really well, we've been getting a lot of attention from other countries. We're getting ready by watching videos of our past performances and doing physical training to boost our fitness levels.
There are exciting firsts, too. Breakdancing and esports are making their Asian Games debuts as official events.
Through competitions known as battles, we've been introducing Korea to the global dance scene. As we make our way into the world of sports, we're feeling more pride and responsibility and are pushing ourselves harder.
So as the road to Hangzhou draws closer, Team Korea is gearing up to bring some joy and excitement to those at home. Song Yu-jin, Arirang News, Jincheon.
The BRICs group of emerging economies on Thursday approved 6 new members: Saudi Arabia, Iran, the United Arab Emirates, Argentina, Egypt, and Ethiopia. This marks the second time BRICs has expanded its members since forming for the first time in 2009 by Brazil, Russia, India, and China. South Africa was invited a year later. During the BRICS summit held in Johannesburg, South Africa, from Tuesday to Thursday, the issue of expanding member countries was discussed as a key topic. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi stated that they're pleased to invite them and would contribute to building consensus on additional membership. 6 new member countries will officially attain full member country status starting from January 1st of next year.
The entire nation will see some more rain until tomorrow morning. Heavy showers are expected for Gyeongsang-do province this time, with up to 150 millimeters in the forecast. The surrounding regions, including Gyeonggi-do, Gangwon-do, and Chungcheong-do provinces, will see 10 to 60. The west coast and Seoul have 5 to 30 millimeters in the forecast. After this round of rain tapers off, conditions will get hot again for the daytime. Maximum temperatures will be hovering around 30 degrees or even higher. Intense UV rays will prevail nationwide as well, so make sure to wear your sun protective items. Tomorrow's Seoul, Daegu, and Busan will be starting off at 25 degrees Celsius. Daytime highs will be 1 to 3 degrees higher than today. Seoul will get up to 30. Daejeon, Gwangju, Daegu, and Busan will all be reaching 31 degrees. While clear skies will make a return this weekend, another round of nationwide rain is in the forecast next week. That's all for now, and here are the weather conditions around the world.
Well, that is all for this Thursday night newscast. Thank you for watching. We'll be back tomorrow with the latest news. Good night.